Hello, hello. Welcome back to another week's of Foreign Takes. I'm back, Mr. Host, Mr. YT. We've lost another one. But who's here with me?
KG's here today. Disappointed again. I was very happy the past 3 or 4 episodes, but today I'm a bit disappointed overall. And yeah, we lost the other guy who was co-hosting with me last time. While you were apologizing to Ivory Coast fans or trying to be Peter Odemwingie. I don't know which one did you choose to be.
Neither nor. Let's close that. And I think we lost KG. He's out trying to find Mr. Tommy T
We
in Munich.
lost Big Lev. Big Lev went to.
Uh,
We lost Big Lev to the Tommy T circle. After calling him a hack, he realized that there's an opportunity here to to go and be his assistant coach when he eventually joins Liverpool, because that's the inevitable apparently.
oh, that would be
So
hilarious. If
so
that,
you're
imagine Big Lev as the assistant to Tommy T at Liverpool. That would be
yeah
the life is
ra-
over.
raging at halftime, going, you're a hack, you don't play Salah here. Yeah, so
Trent, break your legs again. I think we might
yeah.
as well hop into it. There was actually a lot of football this week. Probably worth starting off with Premier League. Let's just start with your team, my friend. Unfortunately, Man United won, Fulham two. Overall thoughts?
Disappointment. What can it be? More, there's nothing to it more than disappointment. After the game, a lot of United fans, there's again a separation between United fans in terms of half of them are blasting the players, half of them are blasting Ten Hag, some of them are blasting the ownership, but I think it's all together. Like, the truth is always in the middle, and it's always everyone's involved in their own way. Ten Hag did stupid calls. I told you this sub as soon as he made. Casemiro went off injured, then he took off Kobe Maino and put on Eriksen. I told you immediately the hole in the center of the park is gonna grow even more. The right wing was non-existing. The right wing, left back Lindelof can't play left back, and on top of that, like, how bad do you need to be as running of a club that you have a left back that's substituting Luke Shaw? You know that Luke Shaw's a bit wavering, and you let him go, going, "Oh yeah, Malacia is going to be back anytime soon. We don't want to pay you even more." And now you don't have a single left back that can take over in the position when your left back is injured. That is not what a top club does. Same goes for a striker. You knew Martial is gone out the window. He's never going to play ever again. And you don't have a striker. Like, it's just all over the place. Like, everything that was good 2 weeks ago has been stuck by glue that eventually broke down again. So United is just very, very, very unstable. And the manager does not have the tools, nor he doesn't have the approach to do it correctly, nor do the players want to play correctly. That's the exact subs that I would make if I needed to get a result on FIFA. It's not a professional coach that would do those subs.
I guess the one that stands out to me because I caught most of the game was like as soon as I tuned in and I saw Mr. Ratface Bruno Fernandes on the right wing, which hasn't worked a single game. Right? It's just one of those things. I'm like, why are we doing the same crazy thing that hasn't worked one time out of the 20 times you've done it? And for me personally, that was one. And then we saw the hole in the midfield. It's just like how many times do you have to get punished when you have midfielders who can't track? McTominay is tactically inept, and Ericsson is just slow. And Fulham, to be honest, they United created chances, but Fulham seemed to be dominating towards the last 20, 30 minutes. It felt like it was inevitable that they would score, right? It's like even the fans, I felt like Old Trafford, they were getting antsy. The players were antsy. The coach was antsy. Something's off still. Like I feel like nothing's really evolved since 2 months ago versus today.
Yeah, it was whatever the positives that they had were very individualistic. That's what became evident again. Like, if before you could say that, oh, there's a pattern of play or there's that, there was no pattern of play. And is very much so is very driven out by characters, individual players such as Hoyun, such as Casemiro, Mino, having Garnacho on the right, Rashford on the left. Those are individualistic things that, whereas once you don't have the players, they don't know how to play. You don't have either you don't have the right players or you don't have a master plan. It doesn't seem that there was a master plan that the players couldn't achieve to do. So it was very, very much so just a soup of different players trying to do something that they can't figure out, like speaking different languages and playing. And you can see, we're going to talk about the EFL Cup result later today, but you could see within Liverpool as well, they had a lot of newcomers and new players. They still had some certain sort of pattern of play, but they didn't have experienced players to do it. Now, if they had their second choice, It would easily like you would have easily seen a pattern of play. Liverpool today looks closer to what United were, how United looked this whole season. That this young kids that are playing that are inexperienced, that don't know how to play, and they're playing for the first time, and they have no communication than United ever looked as a team. That's unfortunately sad, and it's true. And what's the next step is up to the management to decide whether to keep Ten Hag, get rid of the players, and all that. A
There's a
lot of
lot of
work.
work. I think everyone recognizes that it's going to be, and it's not going to be one summer. I think that's the thing to keep in mind, is we've seen this from all the teams that have been rebuilding. I mean, using Arsenal as example, is like it's going to be at least 2 or 3 seasons minimum to like shift out as many players to get them in to get. There's just a lot of work left to be. Can we talk
Yeah,
about top four race though? So I think, of course, Villa won at home 4-2 to Forest, and then Spurs was delayed because obviously Chelsea played. As far as I remember, I think you guys are. Let me check. I think you're 6 points, actually 8 points behind Villa in fourth. How do you feel with your odds this year of catching them?
I don't think that they are equipped to catch them. I don't think they are. There are, even if they will get Rasmus back and Luke Shaw back and Casemiro back and Fernandez back, and they'll play the way they want to play. They're one injury away from falling apart in certain games and losing more points. From here on onwards, they need to be perfect, and they have games with Chelsea, they have games with Liverpool, basically with all the top six. I don't see them getting any points there. I think they'll finish between 7 and 6. That's what I said before last week when we spoke with Big Lev. I was more confident because I thought they were going to get the full home game, at least a draw. If they got at least a draw, it would have been a better conversation. Now I think they're just too paper thin to do anything about it.
I think
And
that's this is a disaster though, right? For the new ownership structure
yeah,
and for the team, like without Champions League income, unless something else is happening, it's like you're going to be restricted by FFP even more than you were already going to be restricted before.
unless they can magically get fifth though, and if fifth is the Champions League spot, then they'll get that. But other than that, I don't think Aston Villa can also 8 points. We've seen 8 points evaporate this quick. Like it's not an end all and be all because Aston Villa had their rough patch. They were closer to Liverpool than they were to United. Now it's flipped. So you never know. But it's just the way United. It's in United's hand. It's not in United's hands. But even if it was in United's hands, I wouldn't count on them getting it because they're just that bad. They're just that bad. And last shout out I want to make: the right wing is completely empty at United, and Jadon Sancho, my friend, your number one concern with the manager was that he doesn't play on the right ahead of someone who's worse than you, and this is a plus to Ten Hag's credibility and his managerial acumen. He's not playing his signing of it. It's for 80 million, and he would give you a shot if you just waited, if you just did your role. And he chooses not to play Ahmad as well, which I don't understand why, but he doesn't play Anthony when that was a clear answer to. Like people would go, okay, play Rashford up top, Anthony on the right. Sanchez could have gotten his shot, but no, he decided to be a little kid about it, and now he's playing bad for Dortmund as well. So
Yeah,
didn't do anyone a favor with that. So
he's done right. Like even now we're seeing Dortmund. Yeah, he had that amazing starts. He contributed a goal this, but now he's reverting back to his average, which is terrible. Like
he's
honestly speaking.
closer. He's closer to JC Lingard in the career trajectory than he is to Harry Maguire.
Yeah,
That
but this
that is unfortunate.
that is true, and we have to give Maguire credit. You know, Maguire has stood up to the criticism, has stood up to the criticism from the fans, from the coach, from everything, and he's shining. Right, you know, he's solid at the back. He's contributing goals. He's wins every header imaginable, both in his box and in the corners. So this should have been what Sancho should have looked at, right? A captain of England and said, "Hey, I should try to replicate him." Instead, fuck off. Well, just childish behavior.
And I hope Rashford's gone in the summer too. I cannot have this any more excuses of him being the local boy and him being this. He can only play in one position. He can't even do it properly season after season after season. That is what a world class player does. When you look at any other team, and this is more of a general, we're shifting away from talking to Man United, but this is an example that I want to give you. Any successful team, when a player is not performing, he is dropped and he's not played for because of his name. There's very little successful teams that do it. City doesn't do it. Arsenal don't do it. Liverpool for sure doesn't do it. Like if Darwin Nunes is playing badly, they're not going to keep him because he's Darwin Nunes. Rashford plays just because he's Rashford. He's been shit the whole season. He's been awful since he got the paycheck, which shows me that he only cares when his money is on the line, his career is on the line, and when he's actually has this fire up his ass like, oh, I'm not being going to be able to play for Man United ever again, and they push him to be the better himself, so he becomes focused on the football. His focus is not on the football pitch. The fact that the team is failing, he's okay with it. He was like, oh, the season's done in my books. I don't care. I hope he's gone. United doesn't need that type of players, and I hope Ineos has the right mind of like not doing this whole oh he's English, oh he's local. We're gonna build our team around him. That's my hope.
I do agree with you. I think the problem would be who's going to offer, because the players are making too much money at Man United. Sancho, Rashford, all these, like even what's his name, Martial. It's just hard to see who can even afford to take them off. Like even if you're paying them low transfer, no one can match the salary. I think that's the problem United are going to have, right? It's like you're probably going to have to pay off a couple players just to get them off out of the team to get the reset started.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what the new ownership should do. They need to figure out a way on how are they going to do it. What way are they going to Maybe they'll pay off them a contract, send them on their way. There's not a lot of high earning players left anymore. It's the Casemiros, the Varans that already have the name, and they're actually playing. Surprisingly, the only players that are the British ones, surprisingly, that are not performing up to the standards just because they're gotten a huge paycheck because they're very popular in the local market.
Yeah,
Um, but
it could
we'll
be
see.
interesting.
It's going to be interesting, and I want to see what happens with that. For me personally, this is another example that this is the problem with Ten Hag as well. It's not like he has the answer and he has very bad players. He did not instill a style of play. He did not instill an approach to the game. He did not instill anything, and the substitutions he makes are FIFA level substitutions. FIFA level substitutions. It's so simple as that.
Yeah, I agree. Continuing the unfortunate topic, which was another win for City, which was Bournemouth 0, City 1. I have to say, am I out of pocket for saying this was another lucky win by City? It's just like they really did not deserve to win this game.
It was the luckiest win. It's probably the luckiest I've seen City win in a while. Like before, when they gotta get a good result, like a good call going towards them, they would still score a second and they would win. They wouldn't win 1-0. This was a win. They got a goal early on. They set back, and then Bournemouth had the better chances. Bournemouth was dominating. Bournemouth was closer to equalizing, and City just held on. They got sometimes you need that luck when you're gonna win the title.
Yes.
So that's what it looks like that they're getting the luck, they're getting this and that. I still don't favor them to win this title. I still favor Arsenal more now. I favored Liverpool. I said that I like Liverpool last episode more, but looking at how many people they're missing, they're missing back now as well. It's
Yep.
just going to be tough for them because they have City in 2 weeks, and the people that are going to come back are not going to be at 100%. Arsenal are just better posed because of the injuries, but I still would favor the other team over City just because they look so depleted. They look tired, depleted, and the goals are coming very tough for them. Not it's not like a easy goal and then we sat back and they didn't do anything, but we also didn't create anything. It was we scored a goal and then they almost killed us, but we escaped past it. We scraped
Yeah,
past
like eventually it's going to catch up, right? Because they can't keep these are we said this in the beginning of the season with Liverpool. It's like, hey, you're winning a lot of games you're not supposed to be winning. Very very lucky wins, and it caught up to them. Fortunately, didn't make a big impact. And I feel like it's the same thing with City. This is not, like you said, this is not a City who wins 18 games in a row and they deserve to win all 18. This is, it seems like they're winning it, but it's very on the fence, right? It's like it's going to only take one or two results to go wrong, and suddenly they're going to be 5 or 6 points behind the race.
it. Yeah, yeah. And me and Big Lev discussed this last episode. They don't have creativity, and the only creativity comes from Kevin De Bruyne, and that's what he was away and he's been injured. But their style of football is very meticulous, as I said before. It's just passing around and in the box and then waiting that there's going to be a window of an opportunity and then you'll get a shot, essentially. Stretching the ball, playing it around, doing the short passes until you get that glimpse at goal or a Haaland runs away with it. And teams figured it out. Like Chelsea figured it out. Brentford almost figured it out. And they get the better chances. Bournemouth gets the better chance. Chelsea got the better chances. If you look at the past three Premier League games, the other teams had better chances. They were just not as lethal because they probably didn't believe. Like, oh my god, I'm 1-on-1 with Ederson. Like, I didn't expect to go this far. Like, that's the position that they're in. I just doubt that Arsenal or Klopp are gonna play them that way. You know,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Arsenal and Klopp are gonna play. Arsenal and Liverpool are gonna play them the way they usually play, and City can overpower you that way because you're playing into their strengths. You're not playing into
Yes.
their weaknesses.
I agree. I
So
agree. That's one of the, it feels weird, right? You're like you do. We want every other team to play them because every other team is going for them. I don't want Liverpool or Arsenal to play them because that's the one game they'll turn it on. Like
here's a
it'll
hot
just
take.
work.
Here's a hot take for you. Put Jose Mourinho in an Arsenal team or a Liverpool team. They're beating City. They're beating City in a one-on-one match. It's not even. If Jose Mourinho is a manager, come game day between Arsenal and City, and between City and Liverpool, if I put Jose Mourinho in charge each of the opponents against City, he's winning that game. In this
listen,
title race and this current form, he's winning that game. He's
listen,
doing everything to get the points.
listen. I agree with you, but the problem is then he loses the next four other games or draws them needlessly. That's the
I said
problem.
prime Jose Mourinho, not the Jose Mourinho of recent years, but prime Jose Mourinho. He beats this City team in this title race with the right squad at his hands. He's beating that City team. I'm
uh,
telling you, like I guarantee you that Jose Mourinho is doing that
listen,
because Jose Mourinho never played to the strengths of the other team. He didn't go like I'm gonna play the way I play all the time. He would
no,
go
he
like
wants
no,
to
we need
win.
a result. We're winning regardless of what you want. We're winning. What did Chelsea do? What did Brentford do? They put 10 men behind the ball. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna counter. We're gonna win them in an old way, and Pep is gonna go home crying. He would do that. He would win that game no matter what. No
I
matter what.
know. That's the sad thing. I wish we could have. I mean, the of course the other big game of the weekend for the Premier League was Arsenal at home played in Newcastle. Honestly, it was a spanking. I don't know how much of it you caught, but it was 4-0 up. I thought it should have been four. We should have ended the game in the first half by 5 or 6 goals. Newcastle, they were gone. Like the midfield was non-existent, and Arsenal. I have to say this is the best Arsenal we've seen. 6 games in a row from the Premier League since the new year. But I
Are we skipping past the Porto result? Is this the best
no,
Arsenal?
we'll get to Champions League later. Don't worry, we'll get to Champions League. But as far as like the Newcastle's concerned, we blew them away. It wasn't even a competition, to be honest.
So here's my question to you. I don't believe there's much to say about the results because Arsenal's past three results, it's on the paper. 6-0, 5-0, 4-1. Like it's clear domination. There wasn't, I believe, a moment where it was in doubt because they were so far ahead and they only conceded one goal and scored how much? They scored 15. That's just a crazy amount. Like Ten Hag only can dream about it. But my question for you is: do you see them? Do you think this is just them not fully at speed? Do you think this is their maximum speed? Do you think they still have enough gas in the tank left to push forward that momentum, keep winning all the way to May?
That's a good question. I actually think we have more in the tank. I think we are going to be able to push more, and we have more in the tank. And I'll say this primarily for two reasons. One is we're beginning to hit form at the right time. It's like we're beginning to hit form at the right time. And two is we actually have players coming back from injury. So we've done most of this. Like we have Gabriel Jesus who's coming back from his knee injury. We have Thomas Partey who's coming back, and Zinchenko has basically been in and out since the new year. And he's a huge factor for us to break down teams. And then we have Jurien Timber, who's finally training again. Party's coming back, so I feel like we're actually going to have more choices to be able when games are not going our way or we can't break teams down because teams are now they're not coming to play against us; they're coming to defend. That's just the way it is, and you accept it. And I think games when it doesn't work with one style, we'll be able to switch it up a lot more with the new players. And also, we had players that were on the fringe, like Emil Smith Rowe is finally past his injuries. Fabio Vieira had an amazing start to the year and got injured. So I think if this is Arsenal, we could not have asked for a better start to 2024. It's like we won six. All of our injured players are coming back. There's competition. We're still in the Champions League. So I think this is as of course it would be better if we were 10 points ahead, but we saw what happened last year. So it's like for how the season has gone and how we ended December, this is an amazing way for us to start the year, to be honest. So I think we have enough in the tank to push everyone to the end.
It's interesting. It's going to be an interesting race. Again, I don't want to call anything because every week the results are changing and there's a lot of games. And this is the actual squeaky bum time, as we're used to
Yes.
say. It's the beginning of it, especially with the Champions League coming back. But what do you think about the Champions League results? What do you think about Porto? Porto did what usually people don't do against Arsenal. You said people come in to defend, but Newcastle. We will cover the Porto result and then we can cover Newcastle a bit just
I
before we
mean,
move on.
Porto was so anyone who hasn't watched the game was 1-0 for Porto. Porto did exactly what we expected them to do, which was the absolute shithousery. That's just the way they play against teams, especially that are they people concede like where they're going to give possession. I think it was a good learning experience. 'Cause I think people forget none of this squad. I think not a single player in the squad has been to this level of the Champions League. Our
Jorginho.
manager. Jorginho, who's won it, yeah, but he wasn't playing. It's like our manager has never been to this stage of the Champions League as a manager, of course. So I think for us, it was actually a good lesson. And the truth is, it was one stupid mistake at the 94th minute by Martinelli, who tried to. It was just inexperience. I'm like, you guys should have settled for a 0-0. It's technically only halftime. Instead, they tried to do a last minute win, and we conceded a wonder goal. Like, you have to give it to Porto. Their strategy worked perfectly. They wanted to defend. I mean, it's also you look at the game. I think there was only 50 minutes played out of the 94 minutes. It's like every single foul was called, every single dive was called. So everything that could have gone right for Porto went right, and you have to give it credit to them. But I think as far as Arsenal is concerned, they're going to try to do the same. Porto's going to do the same thing at home, right? In fact, this is set up perfectly for Porto. But I think Arsenal at home with a full Emirates Stadium is going to be a completely different proposition. So I'm not going to sit here and say we're going to destroy them, but I have still confidence. And I think almost every single Arsenal fan and every single Arsenal player at Mikel Arteta just says, this is halftime. Don't worry. We're going to take you on at home and we're going to beat you. I think there's a level of confidence. So I think it was a good lesson. And then they learned from their lesson against Newcastle. They did not have the same mistakes. And I think they're going to do the same thing against Porto, to be honest. I think it's fine. It's like, yes, we lost. We deserve to lose. But it was a learning lesson, is the way I take it.
That seems fair. What do you
Yeah.
think about Newcastle as a team? Because I know we're discussed Arsenal, and I also think personally that Arsenal's going to go through Porto in this round of Champions League. It's whoever they get next. Like if they get a
PSV?
not PSV, if they don't get the easier teams, they may crash out. I mean, as I already mentioned, who they can't pass by the cities, the Reals, the Inters just because of the experience that they have. They can probably squeak by Bayern, but we're going to cover Bayern later. I'm going to tell you why that they will have a bit of a better season, in my opinion. But yeah, what do you think about Newcastle? Because last time I spoke with Big Lev, he mentioned that we both agreed kind of like this is the ceiling that they got. So the next step that they have to do is they need to get rid of Eddie Howe and bring in my guy who I already mentioned, my number one manager, Jose. But do
Jose.
you?
No, I think the biggest issue that they have is not Eddie Howe right now. I think is the squad is just incapable of competing, especially in the midfield. You look at the energy; it's like missing Tonali, Joe Linton. The drop from those two to the next tier, which is Longstaff and Willock, is just too big. And they're using a 17-year-old Miley, and it's just like they're actually scoring goals, but they're being carved up defensively. And I think that's the biggest difference. Is I think they have the biggest difference between over season of goals conceded versus goals scored. It's Newcastle. They have the biggest by far. It's like their midfield has completely abandoned them, which means the defense is exposed. So I think realistically, it's like I think Eddie Howe showed what he could do with a full squad last year, which is fourth. But if they want to go beyond that, if they have ambitions beyond that, they need to replace him. But I think as far as the squad is concerned, they've also been taught a lesson this year. Is like it always happens, second season syndrome. We've seen this with teams getting promoted from the championship to the Premier League. Is like one season you surprise everyone, they can't handle you, and then the second season everyone begins to know what you're going to do, and then you have to come up with something new. It's happened with Arsenal, for example, the readjustment. So I think realistically, Newcastle have a new cycle that they need to start, which is getting rid of some players, upgrading some. I don't know how they're going to do it with FFP, but also they can do that. But I think we've seen what their max is with Eddie Howe, which is fourth. So if they want more, they need to replace Eddie Howe and the players. But I think that might just be too much stuff to happen.
But what do you mean FFP? What is FFP? I don't. I
I
see
mean,
City buying their own players as FFPs. Is it in a room with us? I don't see
I
any FFP issues for
listen.
City. Where
This is
is
I'm dreaming. Listen, my friend, I have to hope that FFP actually exists for City and Newcastle because we know it doesn't, right? So we're just hoping the summer we're gonna see whether it actually happens or not.
Newcastle fans live in their little world that the Saudis bought them out of the pure kindness of their heart, and they're not gonna pump in money into them, and they just bought them so they can live freely, debt free, and frolic in the top 10 positions of the Premier League. Newcastle fans sincerely believe that they don't have the might because of FFP and all of that. They're gonna be the first ones singing as soon as they build $1 billion stadium that they're the best club in the world.
Listen,
But
you know how I feel about it, but I agree. Do you think this is their ceiling with Eddie Howe? Like,
I think
assuming
I think Eddie
this is
Howe
it.
reached his. I said Eddie Howe reached his ceiling with top four. He's not gonna win them the Premier League. What is more realistically saying? Like, I know people say third is much. Look, they don't give out silver, bronze medals publicly. At least they probably give them like a runners up medal just because. But is that an achievement? Is that something that you like?
No, I don't think so.
Different
Especially
from
for the amount of money that they are going to be able to do, I think it's not an achievement.
So I think that Eddie Howe is not going to compete for the Premier League in the next 2 years for sure. Maybe until Klopp and Pep leave and there's new opportunities there. For unless it's another Leicester City season with this current squad, they're not going to compete. And with this current manager, they're going to pump into the squad. The manager is not going to be able to maintain egos because Eddie Howe never maintained egos in his life. It's going to be the same thing. Like it's going to be a different level of players. You
Yes,
know,
but I think this is normal, right? We saw this at City with Pellegrini. I mean, they did it with Sparky. I forgot his name. The old
Mark Hughes.
Mark Hughes. And then, you know, like, I think it's actually quite natural. So I think Eddie Howe is just trying to get them to stabilize in that fourth, fifth, sixth position. And then they'll upgrade with a new manager, whether it's Nagelsmann in the future or whoever it is. But I do agree. I think Eddie Howe is just there to get them to that stable Champions League / Europa League spot, I think, is my honest
Yeah,
truth.
but I think they are there with their squad that they are there. They didn't have the injuries or whatnot. My point is that they're changing their director of football because their director of football is on the way to United to figure it out. And I was saying that if you're bringing in a director of football, they might as well, push
Switch
the
it
pedal
out.
to the metal. They had 2 years of it. It's already stable. Newcastle was a stable club. They were before they were ran into the ground. They were in this position, so you kind
Yes.
of brought them back to where they were before. So now your next step is to already invest in it.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see what Newcastle finish, where they finish, and what they do.
Yeah. Let's do a quick review of, I think Champions League is probably good. So quickly touching on, so Copenhagen 1, Man City 3. I think relatively expected. It seemed like nothing
Yeah,
surprising there, right?
nothing surprising. City won. We're gonna win at home. We're gonna move forward. Probably they're gonna get PSV in the next round because it's City. Because they're the Pep Guardiola needs to have a cakewalk and cry about it. It's just
It-
I can't stand Pep Guardiola
yeah,
and Man City.
neither
Not
can I.
because again, it's not hate because they're successful. It's because it's a cheat with a cheat code. I've said it before. Like it's such a cheat code. It's like put Pep and Sir Alex Ferguson together. There's not gonna be there. There wasn't, I think, a single fan when Ferguson was around who hated him because they hated him because he beat his team. They're like, oh, he's so good, he beat us. When is he gonna retire? People were saying, when is he gonna retire? Not when is he gonna leave or whatnot. Because he was so good. They're like, we won. That was the sentiment. They were like he's so good. I wish he retired. No one ever said, "Oh, you spent billions of dollars and you cheated his way through it." Well, like like the sentiment is completely different
Yeah,
towards
that
those
is
two.
that's true. But again, they're gonna pass through. And then the next game was Leipzig 0, Real Madrid 1. I think,
No,
Real Madrid definitely deserved to win, but Leipzig put up a pretty good battle, I think, honestly speaking. I think they could say they were a little hard done by, but you would expect Madrid to destroy them or to win relatively safely at home, right?
yeah, they were hard done by at home, and they got a goal disallowed that wasn't supposed to be disallowed. I think Madrid should easily win. They have some issues with injuries. They didn't have Bellingham today in their win against Sevilla. They won 1-0. Sevilla, my God,
Useless.
team such a good team 2 years ago and just ruined by financial fair play or the lack of, or
Fine,
I
that's
don't know
true.
how to, financial mismanagement. And they were just defending, and Modric scored a beautiful goal,
Stunning.
stunning. But they're just missing. They're missing Joselu. They're missing Bellingham. They're missing what makes them tick to score goals. But I have no doubts that they're gonna pass
Yeah,
Leipzig.
I agree with you. The next one was PSG 2, Real Sociedad 0. This was kind of expected. Sociedad is not having a great time right now. They've been struggling the last like month and a half. But I think you'd expect PSG, especially on the counter with Mbappe's speed, to be able to win or at least not lose by more than 2 goals away from home. Is that a fair
Yeah,
assessment?
that's a fair assessment. Do you think PSG is gonna have a run now since Mbappe is saying bye
No,
bye? No,
absolutely not. I think just the balance of that team is off. Like they're still in a transitionary state where it's like they didn't know what to do. Do they want superstars? Do they want local? Do they want up and coming risers? Do they want established? So I think PSG for any of the big teams, like listen, we admit Mbappe can always cause you troubles, right? He's just that good that he can try to drag the team. But I think a solid team that plays as a unit can beat PSG. So I think they're not a favorite in my
I
opinion.
mean, also Sociedad is like they're very unexperienced in this stage of the Champions League,
Exactly.
so it makes sense.
Yeah. The next game, which was quite interesting, was Lazio 0, Bayern. Lazio 1, Bayern 0. Thoughts on this game, Mr. KG?
Tommy T, my man. I already said it last week. It's just like, how can a player get red cards in 2 games straight? Like, it's just I don't
They
know what to
deserve
say.
to lose, though, right? It's just like I don't know what he's doing. Like the team has no. Like, people are like, for what the team is, they're definitely underperforming.
They're definitely
Like
performing
Lazio
it
is not having a great season. How they beat you is beyond me.
by a penalty and a red card. I mean, Leverkusen got Bayern got unlucky. And but the thing is, if it was a one-off, you could say, okay, it's a one-off. Shit happens. They lost three in a bounce, and then they barely pulled one out today. Not today, this weekend with Leipzig. Again, Harry Kane's the only one who's trying. Harry Kane is the only one who's professional enough to try. And my thing is that I think Bayern is gonna crawl through it. Before our last podcast and our last recording, I was thinking that it's done. Tommy T's, they're probably gonna fire him immediately. I was like, oh, I was looking at the Leipzig game and I was like, oh, they're gonna lose to Leipzig and then he's gone. He's gone either after the Leipzig game or they play Lazio and the team just pushes him out completely. But before our recording and after our previous episode, news broke that Tommy T, they mutually agreed that he's going to be out the door in the summer. And this just shows me that this will make them unite. The players will go like, okay, you're out in the summer. I still can play for the future manager who's going to come because they're probably going to find someone within the next 2 or 3 months. So I need to fight for my space in this team for the next manager, and we need to salvage something for the season because we're not getting the cup. We may not get the title, so we need to unite ourselves. And we have a 1-0 loss against Lazio. So I think this result would probably prove them to kind of come together just for a second, just for a bit to try and salvage something of the
Advance.
season because they know Tommy T's out the door and they're not have to deal with. They need to wait for 3 months. It's just
Yeah.
like waiting your shitty landlord relationship to end 3 months.
That's
Like
a good point. I agree with you. I do think they're going to sneak through. Like, I think they're going to have enough. Because you look at the team and you're like, you should be beating Lazio at home by more than 1 goal easily.
yeah, easily. Harry
Yeah.
Kane's doing the God's work.
Yeah,
They're
he
gonna be
really is.
out. I don't think they're going to go to the semifinals.
No, that I
That's
agree
pretty much
with. I think if
self-spoken.
you're any of the top teams, you wouldn't mind facing Bayern, the current Bayern,
Yeah,
is the truth. Okay, the next game is PSV 1, Dortmund 1. This was a pretty even game, but the truth is they're two subpar teams, I think, they found they're both at the same level, in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah. No, but it's not even interesting. Like whoever goes through, who's gonna get knocked out in the next round?
Yeah,
Borussia's too weak. They're not even competing in this title race, and they bottled it last year. It's the first time after a long time that a manager of Borussia Dortmund is not sought after or is even in demand, and usually that speaks volumes of how the team is playing. The team is
yeah,
showcasing some sorts of style. People would want to take them because they are a feeder club
yeah,
in most
really.
ways.
I like that. I think what, in my personal opinion, was the best game of the Champions League this week was Inter 1, Atletico Madrid 0. This was how it was this low scoring is beyond me, but Inter deservedly won. But credit to Atletico, they put up a fight. This was a battle on the field. In all honesty,
Yeah, it was a tactical battle and just again play style miles ahead of most teams this year, and they showcased it again and the way they play and the tactics they use. And it was just a tactical battle. It was a very detailed, technical, defense-minded battle. Inter should have had probably two. To be fair, the only negative is that Thuram got injured, but I think they should go through Atletico Madrid and away. I know Atletico Madrid would if Atletico Madrid gets a goal and they start doing their shithousery, that may affect it. It can go to extra time, but I don't think that that's going to be the case.
Yeah, I think this Inter team has enough experience also to be able to handle it. But
Yeah,
I think this is, in my personal opinion, this is going to be. Of course, I'm going to watch the Arsenal game next week, but I think this has the potential to be the best game of the Champions League so
yeah.
far. It will be Atletico at home to Inter. And then, of course, lastly, the game to talk about was Napoli 1, Barcelona 1. Game of two useless teams. Boring, honestly.
There's no like
Useless.
I have questions for Javi just because he came out with such this is an amazing job, blah 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 blah. And then this is your chops when you show your chops, when you show your managerial ability. You're playing against a manager who's been with the squad for 2 days. 2 days. He's been managing it because they fired Walter Mazzari. They brought in, I don't even know who they brought in. And you play, it was such an atrocious game. There's so many mistakes. It was so tactically, both teams were tactically bad. And Barcelona should have easily won it, and they just didn't. Whoever goes through is just, again, this year's Champions League, this stage is very boring. There's a lot of teams that the games are like, okay, like whoever goes through, good luck. I'm waiting for the next stage to be more interesting.
Yeah, I agree. It was funny because I saw the Napoli goal that, of course, who else but Victor Osimhen? He's back. They suddenly
Yeah.
could score again. The center back, whoever that was for Barcelona, I have never seen such a weak-willed center back who got absolutely shoved by Osimhen. It was just funny to watch and them complaining. I'm like, no, no, Barcelona, you don't get to cheat your way up to Champions League
Yeah.
finals anymore.
Yeah. Not enough money in the bank account. Yeah.
Yeah, really. Let's quickly touch on Serie A and Bundesliga results before I think there's not much to say, but Serie A, Inter, their march continues. They beat Lecce away from home 4-0. It's going to be essentially 12 points, I believe, if they win their game in hand. It's over, right? We've
It's
said this week of work.
it was done before it was officially over. There's
Yeah,
nothing much to talk about in Serie A. Milan drew with Atalanta 1-1 as well. It was an interesting game. This is more of a fight for a top four. Milan could have edged it. Rafael Leao, amazing goal. Pretty much Serie A is done and dusted in February. It's more of watching Inter progress in the Champions League and how they're going to affect it, and
yeah.
where Khvicha and Osimhen will go in the summer. That's the
I mean,
two
we know
two
Osimhen
two,
is
two
definitely
remaining.
going to go. I wonder if they'll be able to hold on to Kvicha for at least one more season.
I don't know why would he want to stay. That's the
Yeah,
question.
that's a good point. I think then quickly, then Bundesliga was another interesting week. Of course, Leverkusen now have the unbeaten run. They won 2-1 at home to Mainz, even though there was a little bit of a scare initially. But and then Bayern won 2-1 at home to Leipzig, which last minute double brace by who else but Harry Kane. But it's now, I think, opened up to be a 8 point gap with against them. This is beginning to be the end, right, for Bayern's title aspirations.
See, the difference between Serie A and Bundesliga's title races is that in the Serie A, you don't think that Inter is gonna the gas off the pedal, whereas in the Bundesliga, all these like types of like the unbeatenness of Bayern Leverkusen, I believe, is very thin veil. As soon as they lose one game, their confidence may go. You know, like we've seen that happen before because it's a new team. Like Inter already has a proven track record, whereas Bayern Leverkusen does not have that. It's Javi Alonso's second season. They were not good last season. The season it's like up and down. Like it's sky and oceans differences in terms of their 2 seasons. So as soon as they lose one, they may lose another. They may lose three. But I don't think that it means that it's going to remain an 8 point gap till the end of the season. I
Yeah,
think they're probably going to win by 2 points at the end of the year, like
I
two
agree.
points, 3 points, that type of win.
I
But it's
agree.
going to be more interesting later on.
Yeah, I think the benefit for Leverkusen this year, as opposed to Dortmund last year, is like Leverkusen's experienced heads that they brought in, Shaka, Grimaldo, Ta at the back. I think they will be able to maintain, like when their one result goes wrong, that they'll be able to keep their heads on the floor and just be like, cool, it happened, to move on. I feel like, especially for Shaka, who's the general in the middle, after what happened with City last year with Arsenal, I feel like they're going to have enough to go.
Yeah.
Just quickly on the Bundesliga, the other thing to quickly touch on is the battle for the third, fourth, and fifth. Because right now, as it stands, Stuttgart is still having an amazing season. They're third with 47 points. Then Dortmund is fourth with 41 points. And then Leipzig is fifth with 40 points. And then there's a big gap with 6 points to Frankfurt in the sixth. But it almost looks like it's going to be Dortmund and Leipzig fighting for the last Champions League spot. and Stuttgart is beginning to pull away in that third spot, right? I feel like it's a very good season for Stuttgart if they can finish third this year.
Yeah, I feel so too. I think Stuttgart can be in the Champions League next year, and they deserve it because they had an amazing start to the season. I would fancy Leipzig over Dort. I would. Leipzig is just a
I agree.
better team, better players, much more mature, much more
Yeah,
talented.
and Javi
Borussia,
Simons is beginning to cook
yeah, yeah.
with Leipzig.
And now Javi Openda is also amazing there. So you never know. Borussia just doesn't seem like they lost to Hoffenheim today as well, 2-3, and just doesn't seem like Jadon Sancho's not saving them, man. Jadon Sancho,
He's
come on,
dragging them
man.
down.
Play some 3 a.m. FIFA. Come on, channel your inner whatever you think you are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
truly. Actually, we should start with the EFL Cup because I think how did Neville describe it? Klopp's kids beat the billionaire bottlers of
yeah.
Chelsea.
The
So
blue
for
billionaire bottlers.
whoever hasn't watched it, it was Liverpool 1, Chelsea 0 in extra time. I think there's not a single person who could understand how Chelsea did not manage to score today. Right, Cage? Is that fair to say?
It was Cole Palmer versus everyone else. That's what it was. Cole Palmer alone versus his own players and the opposite players. Because my God, he was so good. Cole Palmer is really good. He created a lot of chances. He created amazing passes. Put the balls in the right places in the right channels.
Decision
Chelsea,
making, 10 out of 10. You feel almost bad for him, did you? There was moments when you could see he's trying to wait for movements, and
yeah.
he's clearly like one or two steps ahead of every one of his own teammates. The only one who honestly I feel like it could be on the same page is Nkunku, but Chelsea's just they deserve to lose on the end of the day. The truth is.
The number one rule of football is if you don't score, you concede. This is exactly what happened.
Yes.
Exactly what happened. If you don't score, you will concede. Chelsea didn't score all of their chances. They got a rest for 5 minutes, and then they came out at the extra time. It was completely, it's as if different people changed in Chelsea jerseys and came on. Like it's completely different team, completely different approach. Congrats to Liverpool. I knew Liverpool was gonna win it just because the club needed that win. But when I saw the depleted squad, when I saw that the lack of people you can put off the bench,
I mean, Gomez was the only senior player on the bench.
yeah, and they completely fell apart in the second half before the extra time. The players they lost the pattern of playing because they probably never played on such a first of all, at such a stage. Second of all, with this team, so it was quite obvious that they turned into Manchester United in terms of their style of play. But for Chelsea to not punish them, it just speaks of lack of composure, lack of confidence, lack of demand for the win. I don't know. I don't know what Pochettino has to do. $1 billion spent, and you can't even win this against this team. I don't know. Do you fire Poch? Do you keep him? I told before this game that this is a season maker for Pochettino. Do you think it is? Do you think he's gone?
I mean, the truth is, I don't know. Even if he's gone, what do you do? The players are the players, right? You can't get rid of these players. All of them have signed 7, 8 year contracts. So I'm like, is removing Poch the answer? I don't know because it's the same exact players. So I think something has to change. But they're also restricted by FFP because they spend too much. So it's like their hands are tied in many ways. Because yeah, they can sell 1 or 2 players to fund the purchase of another 3, 4 players at 7 or 8 year contracts. But there's something there, right? It's like they played decently. They just couldn't fucking finish, is the truth. But I
They
think
didn't
what
have a
showed
proper striker.
yeah, but the
That's
thing is,
what it
Nico
is.
Jackson actually did all the right things. He was doing the right moves. He was doing the right passes. So I can't even accuse him because he didn't get a single chance. It's everyone else who wasn't shooting, especially Gallagher. My God, he missed
Yeah,
4 or 5 golden opportunities, couldn't keep them on target. But I think more props to Klopp for being able. I mean, I don't think he had much choice, but he threw the kids on, right? Like at some
yeah.
point, he was just throwing. There was just more and more kids, and they performed. Like that's the truth. You just have to give credit to Klopp.
Yeah, credit to club, credit to the kids. Congrats on them. They probably will never forget it. They may never ever play for Liverpool ever again,
Yeah,
or
that's the crazy
not
thing.
stay. But they won a EFL Cup. So kudos to Pep. Kudos to Pep. No, nah, never kudos to Pep. Never kudos to him.
Never could have.
He has one kid who he subs off when he does a little bit of a flickery. He goes like, "No flickery here. You pass the ball in one line for 3 meters and then you beg for it again." Kudos to
Yeah,
Klopp. Yeah,
no,
good for
kudos
him.
to Klopp.
At least he has one trophy if he
That's
finishes
true.
it.
Cool. Then just to wrap up on Europa League, I think the biggest disappointment for the Europa League is how they messed up the draws. It was such a fun and amazing groups, and then the next stage that we got is half the teams have played each other, which was a very disappointing thing. They were all in the same groups, but So quickly, just I'm gonna quickly touch on them. So you give me who you think will pass. So Sporting versus Atalanta. Do you have a winner there?
I don't know who. They're pretty close to each other. I think Atalanta should pass just because of their experience. But again, this is Serie A versus the Portugal League.
Yeah, evenly matched, right? In many
Evenly
ways.
matched. Yeah, evenly matched.
Yeah. Then the next game is going to be Roma versus Brighton. I actually think another fantastic matchup for both teams. It's going to be another interesting game.
Yeah, I think Brighton's gonna pass here. I think De Zerbi's gonna cook something up just because it's De Rossi versus Roma. If it was Mourinho's Roma, no question about it who's going
Yeah,
through.
I agree. The next one is Sparta Prague versus Liverpool. There's not much to say here, is there?
Liverpool's kids are gonna. They bottled already. I mean, they killed already. Blue bottled millionaires or whatever it was. It's just they're gonna pass Sparta Prague.
Yeah, and Liverpool, I think, are favorites at this stage so far.
Yeah, there's two favorites. It's Leverkusen and Liverpool.
Yeah,
Pretty much. Yeah,
yeah. I think the other maybe shout for favorites are Milan versus Slavia Prague. Probably
again,
Milan favorites again, right?
Milan are probably favorites. They're gonna probably go through, but they squeaked past. That Ren gave them a good fight on
Yeah,
Thursday.
that's true. Another matchup we've already seen, which is frustrating, which is Freiburg versus West Ham.
Freiburg's gonna go through. Like, I wanted West Ham to play against Karabakh. I really wanted because Moyes is like, they would lose. Like I know
Yeah,
there's
West Ham are
there's
done.
West Ham. They're playing tomorrow against Brentford. It just seems like their season like is hinging on again another European run. But Freiburg is not your Conference League level teams. They played together and they were evenly matched. I think they won away. I mean, West Ham won both times said they would have that experience. I believe they won both times. I may not be mistaken in the group stage, but I think this time Freiburg is just going to be. They also came back against Lens to
Yeah,
go through,
exactly.
so
The
they'll have
confidence is
more
building.
confidence. Yeah,
And then Benfica Rangers, another
Benfica,
relatively even. Yeah.
Benfica. No, Rangers is not even close. I think Benfica's going to go through.
The thing is, Rangers
There's,
have been on a good run recently with their new manager. They begin to cook, but it's going to be a good game at least. I think it's
it's
going to
going to
be
be a
good
fun game.
exciting.
There's going to be lots of goals, but
Uh,
I think Benfica's just being Benfica. They shouldn't be here. They should be substituting PSV against Borussia Dortmund. That's what they should be. The champions. Like it's not their
yeah,
level.
agreed.
Um,
And then Marseille versus Villarreal is another.
Oh, this is the opposite. This is the opposite of Sporting and Atalanta. This is two teams that are doing very very bad in their respective leagues. Uh, who did you say it was Marseille versus
Villarreal. You just have no
Villarreal?
idea who could possibly come show up, right?
They're both shit. I'm sorry, they're both. I mean, they're usually good, but this season they're just really bad in their leagues. I don't
Yeah,
know who can come out. Whoever comes out, kudos to them.
yeah,
Let's just say
exactly.
that. Then
And
make it to the
then
next round.
no, exactly. And I think by far the favorites versus a team that I think had the best game in the last round, which was Karabag is hosting Leverkusen. So I think it's safe to say Leverkusen are favorites for both for this game and the overall Europa League. But for anyone who hasn't watched the last round where they won 6-5 on aggregate with Karabag, what I think was extra time. Correct me,
It was
KG.
extra time. It was
One
extra
of the
time. It was
best
extra.
games. I'm very glad you texted us in the group chat about this game because that was the best 36, 38 minutes of a football game I have ever witnessed.
Yeah.
Like I had nothing, no reason. I was completely neutral, and the emotions took over me. This was one of the best games.
Yeah, it was a good game, and Braga didn't do much. I mean, they did a lot. They came back, got a red card, but it's just shout out to the young kid Nariman who came off the bench and scored the winner. They needed that win. They needed that win to go through because they haven't done so before. It's their first time playing in the playoffs of Europa League and going through to the 1/8. It's been an amazing journey. It's just the refereeing is never fair. That's the only thing that I can say. Watching Carabao games a lot, they always get the short straw when it comes to refereeing. Some calls were very very biased, and another draw that they get Bayer Leverkusen. What's
Yeah, it's just unfair, right?
surprise?
They just
Surprise!
they deserved better. Like having
Yeah.
seen them the previous round, you're like something the universe should have given them an easier draw, not the bloody favorites of the entire
But
Europa League.
it's not going to be easy. Just to say it to Bayern Leverkusen that they're going to walk through. I know they won 5-1 at home, and Bayern Leverkusen was miles better. But away, they barely won, and they got a 90th minute penalty. So it wasn't like they were very close to drawing with them. I think Karabakh is going to give everything that they have to their advantage, and yeah, I'm excited to see. He's gonna be. They're gonna go out proud. At least that's what's gonna
Yes,
happen.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I would encourage anyone who hasn't watched any of the Europa League games. Fantastic, honestly,
yeah.
they're in many ways they're almost more interesting than the Champions League games because they're just an element of extra attacking, extra impetus that they just have this energy. I think that's probably a wrap for
Now I
us.
have
With
one last question that I had for you. I wanted to ask. I wanted to ask is before we wrap, what if you had one or two players who you think we did underrated players last time with Big Lev. This time for you specifically for you, my friend. What players should be mentioned more and they're fading away in history?
Oh,
One or two.
for me, it's easy, right? I think there's number one is by far Yaya Toure. I think
Okay.
people don't, because people didn't watch like a lot of his games. They either watched him at Barcelona where he was being played out of position, and it made sense, it was the best Barcelona, or at City. There was Yaya Toure, and then there was Yaya Toure unleashed. When he was
Yeah.
allowed to take control of a game, usually it was like the last 30 minutes, they'd just be like, just give it to Yaya, let him float, and let him destroy. I think Yaya Toure is one of the most dominant midfielders that I have ever watched. At his prime, he was just power, technique, shooting, defending, tackling. There was not a single thing he could do. And I still maintain to this day that a team of 11 Yaya Toures will beat any other team of 11 whatever players. This is something
Interesting.
I will say forever is like he could do everything. I said so he comes top of mind. Interesting. Do you have a suggestion? That's
I
my
have
number one.
two. I have two, but I'll
Okay.
give you. First. I think Alessandro Del Piero. He's not mentioned. Like people talk about this and that and those, but maybe because he was in Serie A. But that guy was Juventus, Mister Juventus. He was clutch. Free kicks, penalties, scoring goals, and he was not a very bulky or tall for a striker, but he was just so elegant on the ball. He A lot of Juventus fans became Juventus fans because of Alessandro Del Piero. And I know people, he's a legend of the game, but he's just not. He's not on the pinnacle of the sport as people would put them. But I think he should be there of the Italian sport at least. He's top of mind for me.
That's a very good call.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like if you had Prime Editor or Prime Del Piero, would you want them in your squad? And the answer is always yes, right? It's like
yeah.
there's not a single team that couldn't take both of these, and they would not. They would be a starter for any team essentially.
My second suggestion would have been also similar. It would be Francesco Totti,
Oh,
who's
interesting.
again nobody like he's a Mr. Roma. He did his farewells. He didn't play anywhere. He didn't win anything. Everyone wanted him. From
Ever.
Barcelona to Real Madrid wanted him. He just stayed with Roma. Another amazing player who's just not remembered. But yeah,
Yeah, I like that. Honestly,
yeah,
it reminds me that era with Daniele De Rossi. Wow, what
yeah.
an absolutely incredible defensive midfielder. You look
Incredible.
at him.
Uh,
And I think actually, I'll give you one more shout out. It's Cloud Makalele. He was the most underrated. I mean, it's because he was in the Galacticos doing all the dirty work with Real Madrid. Like, he made that team function, right? He did all that extra. And then he moved to Chelsea. I think Makalele was just one of the most
I think
underrated defensive midfielders.
he created the modern position of the defensive midfielder. The
Yes.
person who does all the dirty work. He created he was the like Makalele was like we want you to play like him. He was the blueprint. He was the skeleton
Yeah.
of that position. So yeah,
Stunning. What a
yeah,
player.
for sure.
And on that note, I think that's a wrap for us. And we will see you guys next week with more results.
Yeah, hoping Big Love is gonna be back from his internship with Tommy T.
He'll
Maybe
give
they'll
us
go.
an inside clue
Yeah,
as to where Tommy T's gonna go next.
yeah, yeah. All right. See you guys.
Peace.